said the latest track took a more northerly track, so it may not, so it's like,
She-
just that.
What do we do if our drainage person does not show up? When he's not here? Right next to Christine.
He's got.
You're all good, see? You're better than you thought.
Sorry, Mayor Pro Tem. Welcome, everybody. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Today is Monday, August 28th. This is the regular city commission meeting from the city of Winter Haven. And that's telephone, letting us know it's time to start. If I get a roll call from city clerk, please.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Mercer? Here. Commissioner Yates?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Birdsong?
Here.
And Mayor Dantzler.
Here. All present accounted for. Our invocation tonight will be led by Apostle Willie Mincy from True Holiness Tabernacle, and our Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Vanessa Castillo. Okay, thank you, Apostle. We have no presentations tonight. We do not have any developments of note that I'm aware of. So we have our minutes, Commissioners, from the July 24, 2023 regular city commission meeting.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
motion to approve the minutes.
thank you. I have a motion to approve the minutes from July 24th. Closed city commission meeting, no public hearing. Anybody from the public want to speak about the minutes, please do so at this time. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing, reopen city commission meeting. All those in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign, motion passes. Comments from the audience, I've had two people sign up. Of course, anybody's welcome. Lakeisha Johnson, non-agenda item, if you'd come forward, please. Give us your name, if you would give us your name and address, you have 5 minutes. Did I say it wrong?
It's okay. I answered anything close.
Sorry, but we're all friends here, so we'll,
Thank you for the opportunity to address the commission tonight.
would you
My
give us
name-
your name and address, please?
Yes, sir.
Oh, you were starting on that, sorry.
I am. My
Okay.
name is Leisha Thompson. I am with Housing and Neighborhood Development Services, otherwise known as HANDS, of Central Florida. We have a Polk County office on Edgewood Drive in Lakeland. I am the loan underwriter for the Down Payment Assistance Program. Our executive director would have liked to have been here tonight, but she is at the Florida Housing Conference. This was the first day of the conference, and she had prior commitments there. I do have some information packets that I would like to present.
Chief will take it to,
There's 5 there. I've got more. Absolutely. Another 5, and 4 more if needed. So I'm basically here tonight. It has been brought to the attention of HANDS that there has been some misinformation presented to the commission possibly that relates to our contract with the city of Winter Haven. I'll give you a minute to get this information in front of you. So the first document that you're going to see is basically tracking information that I use to register clients for the down payment assistance. Now, one of the pieces of information that you were provided is that there was over $1 million left on the books by our company. Now, this tracking sheet, and it starts from fiscal year 14-15, so your information is primarily going to be to the back. But I had only a little over $200,000 left on our books. So this $1 million figure is totally unbeknownst to me as to where that number was derived from. The second group of information that you will see is a letter of proposal from Jeff Bagwell, Executive Director at Keystone Challenge Fund, that is dated October of 2021. Now, we realize in implementing this down payment assistance program that it is very difficult to put very low income buyers into homes, and it is very difficult to spend the special needs set aside funding that is required. That is what part of the money that was left on the books represents. So, realizing that, we made this proposition to the city of Winter Haven back in 2021, which would have expended those very low funds and the special needs set aside. That was, again, presented by Jeff Bagwell. It was implemented, or we tried to implement that in order to get those funds spent in a timely manner. It was determined by the city attorney of Winter Haven that the expenditure of those funds were really not consistent with the LHAP or the down payment assistance strategy, and that we needed to go out for RFP. That RFP was never published. Never published. We waited and waited and waited. Now, this letter will also show you that had that RFP gone out and we would have been able to respond, we would have qualified and been eligible to spend the rehab funds and the emergency assistance funds. 3 of the existing strategies that were in the Winter Haven LHAP, or are currently in the Winter Haven LHAP at the time. We never had a response to this letter, ever. And it's outlined step by step. Ladies and gentlemen, the names of the individuals that we were going to assist in putting new roofs on their homes are in this letter, okay? We had those people income qualified. We had everything signed by them. We had visited their homes.
Vanessa, turn it off. Good, I'm sorry. You can have some more time.
We had visited their homes. We had a staff member that went out as a notary public to these individuals' homes to get notice of commencements notarized, who came back to the office in tears because of the condition that these people were living in. And guess what? We had to go back and tell them, we can't help you. All the work that we put into this, all the man hours, our staff time, and we had to go back to these very low-income people and tell them that we could not assist them, that they had to go to the county for rehab, okay? So that's where it got left. No RFP was ever published. So again, the allegation was that we did not perform. How is that possible? I'm at a loss. We laid this out for you, and you did not give us an RFP. How does that equate to we didn't perform? I don't know. Maybe somebody has a better answer. The last document in your packet, our agreement, our contract with Polk County was the down payment and closing cost assistance program. That is the contract that the city of Winter Haven piggybacked on, okay? That only allowed us to implement that strategy for the city of Winter Haven. That was the decision of the city, not ours. So this will clearly indicate to you that that is the only strategy we were authorized to implement. Again, we go back to had that RFP been published and we'd have responded and been chosen, 3 of those strategies we could have done instead of the down payment assistance only. Again, it never happened. But that was another one of the allegations that was made is we're going to go to this new company because they're an all-in-one. Well, we could have done the same thing, but you tied our hands, literally at hands. So that is pretty much my presentation. I am not here this evening to solicit or lobby for business from the city of Winter Haven. That is not my purpose for being here. I am here to offer a response to the information that was provided to this commission. And I hope that those, what I call slanderous remarks made against Keystone and Hands do not have an adverse effect on the communities that we continue to serve. We just signed a 3-year contract with Polk County. We have 2 years left on a 3-year contract with the city of Lakeland. So we are still in this county. We are still doing work. We are still changing people's lives. Would we like to do that for Winter Haven? Absolutely. But again, I want to set the record straight. The information you were provided is inaccurate as far as I'm concerned, and I believe that I've provided you paperwork that will back that up. I'm happy to answer any questions. You've got my card is included with your paperwork, but that will conclude my presentation.
I want to ask a quick question about rental assistance. Did you have, I'm sorry. I know this started when I was questioning the LHAP agreement and also the fact that we had this money left over, and I assume we have $1.6 million left over. I don't know if we do or we don't from what you're telling me. I assume we still have a fair amount of money in the ledger, so to speak. And where a lot of this started was I wanted to try to make sure that we could use that money for rental assistance. And I used the quote that I've used from many, many times: the best way to stop homelessness is to keep people from becoming homeless. And the fastest way I know to do that is through rental assistance. And is that something that you guys do? Do y'all do that, or you just do down payment assistance? Do you just do fixing roofs? What exactly? Because we use Keystone up here interchangeably all the time. We know Keystone's not really the proper name anymore, the proper. Explain that to me a little bit, and how me as the mayor, I want to see more money used for rental assistance to help people get through a medical emergency, get through loss of a job, and not lose their house. That's what's important. One of the most important things to me. So how can you help us do that? Can you?
I have never worked directly in rental assistance. Our office has worked the emergency rental assistance program. In fact, we did that for the city. We, during the COVID crisis, that was one of the programs that we worked on for the city of Winter Haven. We cover 5 counties right now, Hands of Central Florida does, and our executive director has worked rental assistance. I can tell you this, if we will do it. We will do whatever the city needs us to do. between our Orlando staff, there's 5 staff members in our Orlando office. There's 3 staff members in our Lakeland office. The other 2 staff members are here with me this evening. We will do whatever the city needs us to do. That has always been our philosophy. You are our governmental partner. And through the experience of the Orlando staff and our office, we will do whatever is needed for us to do.
My last question, this is what I was trying to think of earlier. The agreement we have with this other company is one of, I guess, reimbursement. They front the money and then we reimburse them after they've provided service? Or is that the way it all is in all of this whole arena? Everybody, you provide the money up front and then we reimburse you after you've provided something that we've hired you to do? Or do you ask us for the money up front and then you do it?
No, sir. We in the down payment assistance strategy, we wire funds. I personally wire funds directly to the closing agent. And then we submit invoices, reimbursement requests to the city for those funds.
So you have to have some balance sheet of some sort, some line of credit or something to be able to do that, because is that a fair assessment?
Yes, sir, it is. And I can tell you that the financial backing at Hands, when Hands took over all of the Polk County work, that includes City of Lakeland, Winter Haven, and Polk County, January 1st of 2022. And Jill McReynolds, our executive director, came to Lakeland, and she opened 3 separate bank accounts for different strategies that we work on, CHODO, down payment assistance, mortgage assistance, and she opened accounts over here, $200,000 in each one of those accounts. So, you know, we are there. I mean, if we run low, we fund it from a different account. So the financial aspect of the company is there,
Okay.
without a doubt.
Anybody else? Well, thank you for coming.
Absolutely.
Appreciate you being here.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we have Tom.
I just have one
Oh, wait,
question.
go ahead, Commissioner
So
Birdsong.
do we had $1 million, I don't want to revisit that because we've already discussed that, but we allocated the $1 million.
Yep. Let me go ahead. So yeah, what we have in our balance has been verified by our financial team. That's our balance that we have in our SHIP funds. That included this year's allocation of 600,000 plus.
Technically full.
Yeah, in that balance.
No, it's $1.6 million, or is it $1 million total?
So it's,
CJ, did you recall?
how much?
1.6 million.
1.6.
And that includes, you know, fund income as well. When people sell their homes that utilize the SHIP program, they pay us back. So there's additional income that comes into that fund balance from time to time.
So the $1 million that was stated in the meeting is in fact what was the carryover?
Yeah, there was a big carryover. So at the end of, we're estimating at the end of this year, we'll have 1.2 million, and we're gonna carry that forward to next year. So with next year's, project expenditures, it's 1,681,000.
Okay. All right, anybody else?
And that includes the 800, or 683,000 that was newly appropriated this year?
Right.
I'll go ahead and add, just from my knowledge from the private sector, I've worked with Keystone over the years on many occasions, and they are a excellent, fine organization. I appreciate your comments this evening. I don't know that there was ever any intent to disparage Keystone or Hands organization in doing this transfer. If that did occur, I extend my apologies. But I will say, I haven't had the chance to work with Hands because of my role has changed in the banking industry, but previously in Keystone, in the mortgage side, I worked hand in hand with Jeff Bagwell and others, and you guys did do a wonderful job. So I just wanted to set that record. I don't think there was any intent to disparage the Hands organization or Keystone. It was just a matter of, I think, a change. So just wanted to add that.
Okay, well, thank you for saying that. Okay, next up, we got Tom Leary, but he said 12C, so we'll call on you, Tom, when we get to item 12 on the agenda. So, anybody else like to speak to the audit, speak to this? Please come forward now. All right, ordinance second reading, public hearing, item 9A on your agenda is 02324, revised administrative request to amend the 2025 Winter Haven Comp Plan. City Attorney, would you read by title only, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ordinance number O-23-24 revised, an ordinance amending ordinance 11-03, the Winter Haven Comprehensive Plan by amending the future land use element, housing element, neighborhood preservation and revitalization element, transportation map series, infrastructure element, recreation and open space element, conservation element, intergovernmental coordination element, and the capital improvements element to extend the planning horizon to 2035, repealing all ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for the administrative correction of scrivener's errors, providing for severability, and providing an effective date. Thank you.
Thank you. City Manager?
Mayor and Commissioners, we have reviewed this during first reading, and again, at your agenda review last Wednesday. I'm happy to stand for questions, as is staff. But I would say staff at this point recommends City Commission approve ordinance O-23-24 as revised on second reading for final adoption.
Thank you. Commissioners?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
move approval ordinance O-23-24, revised, second reading, public hearing.
We have motion to approve O-23-24 on second reading. I'll close the City Commission meeting, open the public hearing. Anybody from the public like to speak to this item, please do so at this time. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Your open City Commission meeting. Commissioners, questions or comments? All those in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion passes. O-23-25, this is item 9B. This is a revised administrative request to amend and update the 2025 future land use map. City Attorney, would you read by title only, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ordinance number O-23-25 revised, an ordinance amending ordinance 11-03, the 2025 Winter Haven Comprehensive Plan by revising the future land use map series, by adopting the 2035 future land use map series, repealing all ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for the administrative correction of scrivener's errors, and providing for severability, and providing an effective date. Thank you.
Thank you. City Manager?
Mayor and Commissioners, as we just looked at ordinance 2324, which was revisions and amendments to the 2025 comprehensive plan to update the goals and objectives and policies, this ordinance, which is ordinance O-2325, is the related request to amend and update the 2025 future land use map to create the 2035 future land use map. Again, this was reviewed during your first reading, has been reviewed by the state and related agencies, and at our workshop last Wednesday, staff recommends the City Commission approve ordinance O-2325 revised on second reading and final adoption.
Commissioners?
Mayor, I move that we approve O-2325 on second reading, revised.
Thank you. We have a motion to approve O-2325, administrative request to amend the future land use map. I'll close the City Commission meeting, open the public hearing. Anybody from the public like to speak to this item, please do so at this time. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing, reopen the City Commission meeting. Commissioners, questions or comments on this? All those in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion passes. On to O-2337. This is a request by Tim Campbell to rezone a parcel from industrial I-1 zoning to a PUD zoning district. City Attorney, would you read by title only, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ordinance number O-23-37, an ordinance amending Chapter 21 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Winter Haven, Florida, by rezoning a parcel from industrial-light I-1 zoning district to plan unit development PUD zoning district, providing for the administrative correction of scrivener's errors, repealing all ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing an effective date. The general location, 2200 3rd Street Northwest. The area covered by this request is 22.57 plus or minus acres. Thank you.
Thank you. City Manager?
Mayor and Commissioners, Tim Campbell is requesting the city rezone this parcel from Industrial Light I-1 zoning district to Planned Unit Development PUD zoning district. Involves 22.57 plus or minus acres and consists of 3 industrial warehouses and supporting infrastructure. The property is located within the Florence Villa CRA. Petitioner is looking to redevelop subject property with a mixture of multifamily residential and commercial uses. It would be contained within the primary activity center future land use. Access will be off of 3rd Street Northwest, Avenue U Northwest, Avenue V Northwest, and a new connection to Motor Pool Road is also envisioned. The PUD conditions provide standards for lot and building requirements, landscaping, signage, roadway and pedestrian connections, and electric vehicle charging. The PUD is consistent with the primary activity center future land use. At this time, there is sufficient potable water and wastewater capacity. There is not sufficient capacity on Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. However, a percentage of the potential trips will likely be internal capture trips and utilize other unmonitored local roadways accessing the property. This is part of the transportation concurrency exception area, so therefore it's not required to comply with transportation concurrency requirements. Based upon the maximum potential development for up to 903 units, it could result in up to 176 elementary, 42 middle, and 62 high school seats with that development. Staff's conclusion is that the petitioner's request to rezone the property from I-1 to PUD is consistent with the underlying primary activity center future land use. The PUD is consistent with the unique or innovative design techniques required for establishing a PUD as provided for in section 21-373D of the Code of Ordinances. The PUD is consistent with the Florence Villa CRA plan. There is adequate water and wastewater. We do note that there will not be sufficient roadway capacity on Martin Luther King Boulevard. However, the ability for internal capture of a portion of these trips, the ability to access other streets on the city's street grid, and direct connection to the Chain of Lakes Trail will serve to mitigate those deficiencies. Planning Commission did hear this on July 11th. They did make an adjustment with respect to legacy warehousing and when they would have to convert those warehouses to other use. That is defined within your fact sheet. They also made a minor adjustment with respect to sidewalks. Staff is recommending City Commission approve ordinance 02337 on second reading. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
motion to approve ordinance O-23-37.
Thank you. We have a motion to approve 02337. I'll close City Commission meeting, open a public hearing. Anybody from the public like to speak to this item, please do so at this time. See none, I will close the public hearing or open City Commission meeting. Commissioners, questions or comments? All those in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion passes. All right. 02338, administrative request to amend the Winter Haven Code of Ordinance, Chapter 15. City Attorney, would you read by title only, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ordinance number O-23-38, an ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Winter Haven, Florida related to roadway classifications by amending the Code of Ordinances of the City of Winter Haven, Florida by revising Chapter 15, Sections 15-93 and 15-94, by revising Chapter 21, Article Roman numeral 3, Division 2, Section 21-122, providing for applicability, repeal of conflicting ordinances and resolutions, the administrative correction of scrivener's errors, severability, and providing for an effective date. Thank you.
Thank you. City Attorney, City Manager?
Mayor and Commissioners, this request revises the roadway classifications and adds street and roadway classifications to Chapter 21, Section 21-122. It includes these classifications in the same chapter as the city's zoning districts. It updates the street and roadway list to add new roadways, and it changes the classifications of certain streets or roadways in which the character has changed clearly since 1959. Staff added a minimum alley right-of-way width of 20 feet and split the right-of-way requirements for collector roads into 2-lane and 3-lane roadways. The Planning Commission, at their July 11th, 2023 regular meeting, voted to recommend approval of the proposed changes, and there were no public comments regarding that request. Staff recommends City Commission approve ordinance O-23-38 on second and final reading.
Thank you. Commissioners?
Mayor,
Yes.
move approval of ordinance 02338 on second reading.
Thank you. We have a motion to approve O-2338 on second reading. I'll close the City Commission meeting, open a public hearing. Anybody from the public want to speak to O-2338, please do so at this time. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and reopen city commission meeting. Commissioners, questions or comments?
Mr. Mayor, just a quick note, as the city manager notated and the city fact sheet reflects, we have evaluated this administrative request to change the code, and it does comply with the requirements set forth in Senate Bill 250 and the fact sheet notes. I just want the record to be clear on
Good.
that point.
Yeah, let
Thank
the
you.
record reflect it's compliant, so we're good, glad to know about that, John.
Thank you.
Anything else? All those in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign, motion passes. Commissioners, you have in front of you consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
motion to approve consent agenda as a whole.
Thank you. We have a motion to approve the consent agenda as a whole in its entirety. I'll close city commission meeting, open a public hearing. Anybody from the public want to speak to any item on the consent agenda, please do so at this time. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and reopen city commission meeting. Questions or comments, commissioners, on any item on the consent agenda? All those in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign, motion passes. On to resolutions. Item 11A on your agenda is R2345. This is the dissolution of the 2007 construction fund. City Attorney, would you read by title only, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Resolution, Resolution number R-23-45.
Right.
A resolution of the City Commission of the City of Winter Haven, Florida, declaring the remaining 2007 construction fund balance to be surplus, ordering the disposition of such surplus, and approving the dissolution of the 2007 construction fund, providing for severability, the administrative correction of scrivener's errors, and providing for an effective date. Thank you.
Thank you. City Manager?
Mayor and Commissioners, on March 30th, 2021, tax certification was provided stating there are no remaining unspent proceeds in regards to the 2007 bonds, which were the source for the 2007 construction fund. There does exist an unencumbered balance of $234,158.62. Staff's recommending the dissolution of the 2007 construction fund and the remaining unencumbered balance of $234,158.62 be surplused and transferred to the Transportation Fund. Staff recommends City Commission adopt Resolution R-23-45. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners?
Mayor,
Yes.
move for approval of Resolution R-2345.
Thank you. A motion to approve R-2345. I'll close city commission meeting and open a public hearing. Anybody from the public like to speak to this resolution, please do so at this time. Seeing none, I will close the city public hearing and reopen the city commission meeting. Commissioners, any questions or comments on this resolution? All those in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed, like sign, motion passes. Item 11B on your agenda is R-2347. This is adopting a building permit fee reduction policy. City Attorney, title only, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Resolution R-23-47, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Winter Haven, Florida, adopting a building permit fee reduction fund policy, making findings, providing for repeal of all conflicting resolutions, severability, and the administrative correction of scrivener's errors, and providing for an effective date. Thank you.
Thank you. City Manager?
Mayor and Commissioners, House Bill 447, which was passed July 1st, 2019, states that local government is prohibited from carrying forward an amount within your building division funds that exceeds the four-year rolling average of the operating budget for enforcing the Florida Building Code, Florida Fire Prevention Code, and the Florida Life Safety Code. So Resolution R-2347 provides for a building permit fee reduction fund policy consistent with the requirements of Florida statutes. Excess funds not otherwise dedicated to the construction of a building for that operation of the building division or to building official training activities to be used to reduce building permit fees in a variable amount up to 25%. So the percentage amount of the reduction is, if one is to be given annually, is determined and authorized annually by the Building Code Enforcement Agency in consultation with the Director of Finance, and a recalculation to be made every year. Staff recommends the City Commission do the following. A, approve Resolution R-23-47. B, establish the building permit fee reduction fund policy. And C, authorize the mayor and other city officials to execute the same, and the city manager or designee to take all other necessary actions related thereto. There is a copy of the building permit fund, the reduction policy within your fact sheet. And again, basically what this comes down to is you collect building permit fees for inspections and other building-related services, fire inspections and those items. You're only allowed to carry a certain amount within that fund. These aren't funds that can be transferred for transportation expenses or parks and recreation. They are specific to enforcement of the codes that I had mentioned. And anything that is above and beyond that is to be refunded or somehow adjusted to reduce the cost for your building permit fees. So we are in the process of making some improvements to a building for our building division. And at the same time, this policy will allow us to offer a 25% discount on building permit fees until such time that our fund balance there is within that allotted threshold.
Questions? I got a question, a couple of questions. John, first of all, who's the controlling interest here? Is it CJ? Is she the one that has to keep up with this, or who's going to keep up with the books on this thing? It seems rather cumbersome to me.
CJ, I'll answer for her. Yeah, it'll be the Director of Finance for sure.
And you can't carry but only so much forward, is that?
It's the 4 years average of.
Four-year
operating-
average.
And operating expenses as defined by a number of things, but.
I mean, does the statute give you any flexibility? I mean, I'm just concerned about the logistics of doing this.
Well, the statute gives a degree of flexibility insofar as it is not abundantly well-written.
Yeah,
And
that's what I was
so
saying.
it says certain things, but it doesn't say how, when, or why, or give you a mechanism for measuring metrics on that. So I think at this point, our approach is a very good one insofar as we are determining that we're going to be essentially reducing the amount of permit fees, which is authorized as part of the mechanism to implement this statute, as opposed to issuing refunds. And I think that's the better way to go. Certainly, Ms. Scott and the city manager and I have discussed this, along with Eric Labby and the building official and the public safety folks. And I think that at the end of the day, there's a report, a utilization report that's required to be filed and also posted on our website every year. So that will help us in capturing some of the financial requirements that go along with this undertaking. And so I think that in conjunction, it may sound complicated, but it's really, I think, going to be a very, I hope, very good way of implementing this law that was unfortunately not real well-written, but it is something that, you know, all our local governments have, various degrees have to adhere to. So
There's no standardization that what we're all going to do in Auburndale and Lakeland, we're all going to do it different.
I don't know that I would say it as perhaps expansively as that. I think probably in general, I could make the statement that most of the municipalities I'm aware of are going to move towards the process of reducing their fees with these excess funds versus making refunds.
The problem when you reduce fees, it's hard to raise them back up.
Well, I think this is, and that's why I think it's a discount. So we're not going to actually reduce the fees.
You'll offer a discount of some sort.
But you'll offer the discount, which will be up to, that's why we wrote it that this way, up to 25%, which will then be calculated, you know, carefully every fiscal year when we have actual numbers, and we can know what, because, you know, it's sort of like, you know, the pension stuff, the smoothing.
Yeah, that's why I keep going back to that smoothing technique.
Yeah, so I think that some years will be, you know, we're going to get there, but this is our effort. You know, at a certain point in time, you could, prior to the 2021 amendments, you could have kept a lot of excess funds on the books to buy a building or to fund a construction of a building. And they then came back and revised that, said, oh, you can only do that for 4 years consecutively. So you've had to do some things here that I think are appropriate, and I think, you know, that's just the way it.
My
way we've
next
looked at it.
question, John, has to do with, do we have flexibility? First of all, is there any teeth in this? Can we get in trouble if we don't do it? I mean, is there like somebody's going to come out and audit us and
Well-
put us in jail, or?
It's part of the audit.
It is part of the audit. Let me be clear, no one's going to put anyone in jail.
Well, I'm being facetious, you know how I do
You
it.
know, I think you could get a finding that would be negative, you know,
Your
or you
audit.
could, in an audit finding, you know, I think that there would be potential for the Auditor General or the Inspector General, you know, and then the legislature becomes aware of these kinds of things, and So I think, you know, in general, I think you want to try to be compliant with the laws that are
Right.
enacted in Tallahassee. So this is our effort to do that.
My last point, and I'll move on, has to do with maybe making a bigger fee reduction for somebody that's potentially doing workforce housing or affordable housing and maybe not so much. Is there any way to go down in the weeds like that to where we can incentivize certain development by larger fee reductions and rebates versus a regular shopping center, for example, or something like that?
Certainly, Mayor, that's a great idea, but my initial thought is that we probably don't want to get into that unequal or treating folks in a disparate manner, because that has unintended consequences as well. That's something we can maybe look at as we begin down this road. But my initial advice in consultation with the finance director and the city manager is that let's establish the policy, let's implement it, but I would be reluctant to recommend that you do things in a differential manner until we have some track record here. And maybe that might make sense if we could establish some objective criteria where we're not, you know, penalizing someone, and, you know, you got to be real careful in that area. And, you know, there are some things that maybe you could do, but I don't want to say anything more than that tonight, but it's a good idea.
I'm just thinking of incentives that we can offer potential developers. This might be one that we could do. But we're going to pass this tonight, clearly,
Yeah.
but we can always amend it later.
Oh, sure. None of this stuff is set in stone, but this is our best effort to be compliant with the statute.
And Mr. Mayor, if I could just add just a comment to this, I think that, you know, how this happens every year is somewhat in direct correlation to what is the housing and construction market. Because certainly if you have a boom, as we've seen as of late, you're taking in a lot more revenue because you're issuing more and more permits. That could easily drop off too, and your expenses remain relatively the same because a lot of it is your personnel and your staffing. So the effect of that 25% could bring that surplus down quick in some years.
I get it. That's smoothing technique. Go ahead, Brian.
But this doesn't affect anything that's under construction and underway now. This would be
It would be a forward-moving
forward
perspective.
move. So if somebody requests it 2 weeks from now, this could impact them. Anything that's already,
Yeah, my sense is that this will be implemented as we go forward in the next fiscal year, perhaps, but I don't want to give a specific date what the contemplation was, but
But we're not going to backdate it to July when this thing
no, we're
passes.
not
No,
going to
no,
backdate it. That's fine. So just wrapping my simple head around this. So it's really the state taking away one of the few tools we already have for controlling growth.
Well, your building division, you know, those funds as long as I've known, could not have been transferred out to other areas. It's just, they're just trying to control you from having excessive building permit fees that are beyond what it actually costs to do business, and we have to submit that to them annually.
Which the state feels they know what's going to be beyond the window of 2 years from now, or 3 years from now, or 4 years from now. But one of those areas that you can adjust, you know, as growth continues and leaps and bounds is in the impact fees, and that can help curb
This
that.
isn't impact fees. This is just on your permit fees.
Well, I'm using it in a generality of part of the package, but it just seems like, you know, the state knows best, I guess, so.
Brian, you're starting to sound like a hometown hero.
Is it? Is that, that's just, there's a term for it.
Home
I'm
ruler
not
right
sure.
there.
well, I think just an observation is that this certainly doesn't promote efficiency necessarily.
Right.
Because it would, in fact, promote you to hire as many people as you possibly can and have
then
as
lay 'em
much-
off when you
as
don't
much
have enough money
operating
in that account
expenditures as you
anymore.
possibly can, so that your operating budgets,
Right.
Build
Or-
buildings that you may not need, improve
yeah, are
stuff.
high, so that you don't have excess funds.
Not fiscally responsible, but.
But that's an aside. Anyway.
Okay. All right, so where am I? We already got a motion, and now I'll close the city commission meeting and open a public hearing. Anybody
We
from?
have a motion? I don't think.
I
don't
thought I
think
got
we
a
have
motion from
yet.
Tracy.
No,
Nope.
I don't have it.
I did the last one.
All right, I
You
need a
do?
motion, please. Somebody? Anybody?
Move approval of resolution R 2347.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion to approve R 2347 on, and I will close city commission meeting, open public hearing. Anybody from the public like to speak to this item, please do so at this time. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing, reopen city commission meeting. Any other form of questions or comments? All those in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those like sign, motion passes. R 2348 is an amendment for the public transportation grant agreement with the Florida DOT. City Attorney, would you read by title only, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Resolution R-23-48, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Winter Haven, Florida, approving that certain amendment to the Public Transportation Grant Agreement between the City of Winter Haven and the Florida Department of Transportation, FDOT, under contract number G1L11 and financial project number 446382-1-94-01 for funding for the construction of the airport security gates, access control, installation of security cameras, and fencing project at the Winter Haven Regional Airport Gilbert Field, and authorizing the city manager and appropriate city officials to execute said amendment and to take all other necessary actions regarding said project and agreements related thereto, providing for severability, conflicts, and an effective date. Thank you.
Thank you. City Manager?
Mayor and Commissioners, Resolution R-20-05 was approved in January of 2020 for a public transportation grant agreement with the FDOT for the design of airport gates, access controls, and fencing security enhancements at the Winter Haven Regional Airport. A contract was executed ultimately with Semco Construction out of Bartow, Florida. The total construction cost of $1,822,464.30. March 28th, 2022, the City Commission approved Resolution 22-12, amending the original FDOT agreement to cover the additional costs of the increased project construction. There is now a new proposed construction cost, or the new proposed construction cost is $2,346,300, with FDOT paying 80% of that, and the city's new share of $469,260, or 20% of the project cost. Staff's recommending the City Commission approve Resolution R-23-48, which approves the amendment to the DOT's Public Transportation Grant Agreement and authorize the city manager to execute the same, take all other necessary actions related thereto. So this is for more money coming to us for that project from DOT.
Mo money. Anybody?
Mr. Mayor,
Yep. Go,
I
Tracy.
move for approval of Resolution R-2348.
8. Yep. Yes. You have a motion to approve R-2348. I'll close city commission meeting, open a public hearing. Anybody from the public like to speak to this item, please do so at this time. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing, reopen city commission meeting. Commissioners, questions or comments? All those in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those like sign, motion passes. R-2349, this is a request by Lennar Homes confirming acceptance of improvements and infrastructure. City Attorney, would you read by title only, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Resolution R-23-49, a resolution confirming the acceptance of certain improvements, infrastructure, and dedications in favor of the public / City of Winter Haven as notated on that certain plat entitled Peace Creek Reserve, recorded in the Office of the Clerk of the Circuit Court in Fort Polk County, Florida, in Plat Book 197, pages 5 through 15, Public Records of Polk County, Florida, maintaining the performance bond posted to guarantee completion of required improvements in infrastructure. General location, subdivision is generally located east of County Road 653, north of Old Bartow Lake Wales Road, and west of the Peace Creek Canal. Thank you.
City Manager?
Mayor and Commissioners, January 23rd of 2023, Resolution R-2302 was approved platting the Peace Creek Reserve subdivision, which is approximately 190.7 plus or minus acres, and contains 553 building lots and 9 common lots. Lennar Homes submitted a performance bond in the amount of $3,981,271 to guarantee the completion of the required infrastructure and improvements. Lennar's request is that the city accept only those improvements and dedications on the western portion of the Peace Creek subdivision. Portion of the subdivision contains 106.53 plus or minus acres and consists of lots 1 through 361 and 5 of the common lots. Recent inspections by staff found all incomplete improvements are now complete. The water, wastewater, and reused utilities can now be accepted by the city. City does not accept maintenance responsibilities for the internal roadways, street lighting, or drainage infrastructure within the subdivision. There is, I guess, an electric utility pole relocation delay that's preventing the developer from completing the inspection, testing, and certification of the eastern lift station And so that east portion contains 50 plus or minus acres and consists of lots 362 through 553 and 4 of the common lots. Performance bond will continue to be maintained by the city until all required infrastructure and improvements in that area have been completed. Staff recommends City Commission approve Resolution R-23-49.
Thank you. Commissioners?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
move approval of resolution R 2349.
Thank you. We have a motion to approve R 2349. I'll close the city commission meeting, open a public hearing. Anybody from the public like to speak to this item, please do so at this time. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing, reopen city commission meeting. Commissioners, questions or comments on this item? All those in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose like sign, motion passes. All right, ordinance first reading, O 2340. This is a request by Craig Ober to rezone 3 parcels from PUD. City Attorney, would you read by title only, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ordinance number O-23-40, an ordinance amending Chapter 21 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Winter Haven, Florida by rezoning 3 parcels from Plan Unit Development PUD zoning district to single-family residential large lot R-1 zoning district, providing for the administrative correction of scrivener's errors, repealing all ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for severability, and providing an effective date. The general location, 1,000 Lake Otis Drive Southeast. The area covered by this request is plus or minus 2.81 acres. Thank you.
Thank you. City Manager?
Mayor and Commissioners, in this case, petitioners requesting a rezoning, as the city attorney had mentioned, 2.81 plus or minus acres. This was rezoned in 2014 from single-family residential large lot R1 and single-family residential small lot R2 zoning districts to a PUD. However, following the rezoning, no site plan had been submitted for review and approval. In 2023, this petitioner purchased the property and now intends to construct a single-family home. I think we had a little bit of discussion on this Wednesday night, so I won't go into further detail and just ask that this be moved forward for second reading.
Questions or comments, Commissioners? T, I was going to ask, and Eric, you might even remember this, but when this property was originally brought to us to maybe build 3 or 4 homes on it, wasn't there like some big, huge baobab tree or something on there we were trying to save, or there was some sort of a banyan, not baobab, but banyan tree that was like almost as big as the one at Cypress Gardens or something, and we were trying to do something to save that, or does that even ring a bell?
Vaguely, Mr. Mayor, we can go back and look at the minutes for that, and I would think, that nothing's happened on the property that I'm aware of other than the demolition of the existing home. As the fact sheet suggests, the carriage house is still on site, but I'm not aware of any major removal of trees or anything out there.
It created a big thing with a lot of the residents that loved this banyan tree. It was huge, so anyway. We'll deal with that later.
Look into that and have some comments for you before second reading.
Okay, 12B, O-2346, request by Down Around Dairy Down, LLC. City Attorney, would you read by title only, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ordinance number O-23-46, an ordinance amending Chapter 21 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Winter Haven, Florida by rezoning 4 parcels and a portion of a parcel from commercial heavy C-4 zoning district to commercial downtown C-1 zoning district, providing for the administrative correction of scrivener's errors, repealing all ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for severability, and providing an effective date. The general location, parcels are generally located along the western frontage of 5th Street Southwest, south of Avenue C Southwest, and north of Avenue E Southwest. The area covered by this request is 1.47 plus or minus acres. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor and Commissioners, this is a request by Down Around the Dairy Down LLC to rezone the 4 parcels and a portion of a parcel from commercial heavy C4 zoning district to commercial downtown C1 zoning district. You can see the properties on your visual map there. The staff's conclusion was that this request represents a natural expansion of the downtown core towards US Highway 17. The rezoning of the subject property will allow the proposed redevelopments to be consistent with the development to the east as it relates to development standards. The request supports land use concepts outlined in DOT's US 17 corridor study. And maximum development potential is unchanged, therefore there's no increase in potential infrastructure demands beyond what is currently allowed. This was heard at the Planning Commission on August 1st with no public comments offered. Staff recommends City Commission advance this to second reading.
What was the general consensus of the Planning Commission?
I'll defer to Eric Labby for that.
Unanimous recommendation of approval. It's they felt like it was just a very natural expansion of C1. Very similar to the Bowen Yard project that is under construction currently.
Gotcha. Okay. Anybody else? Okay, R 2347, this is a request by William Wright Sparling Irrevocable Trust. City Attorney, would you read by title only, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ordinance number O-23-47, an ordinance amending Chapter 21 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Winter Haven, Florida by rezoning one parcel from single-family residential small lot R-2 zoning district to mixed-use MX zoning district, providing for the administrative correction of scrivener's errors, repealing all ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for severability, and providing an effective date. The general location, 1103 Fifth Street Southeast. The area covered by this request is 0.21 plus or minus acres. Thank you.
Thank you. City Manager?
Mayor and Commissioners, William Wright Sparling Irrevocable Trust requests the city rezone a parcel from single-family residential small lot R2 zoning district to mixed-use MX zoning district. Contains .21 plus or minus acres and is developed with a 1,792 square foot single-family home constructed in 1966. The request for this change is for the purpose of allowing the existing single-family home to be redeveloped into a mixed-use building with approximate 832 square foot office on the first floor and a residential unit on the second floor. There's no current plans to further redevelop the property. However, should the property be redeveloped in the future, the requested MX zoning could potentially allow up to a maximum of 6 residential units or 13,721 square feet of office or light commercial uses permitted within the MX zoning district. Staff's review of this yielded the following conclusions. The requested MX zoning is consistent with the MX zoning assigned to properties located to the north and west, as well as the mixed-use development pattern of the surrounding area. The proposed use of the property as a mixed-use office residence is what is envisioned in the MX zoning district and consistent with the primary activity center future land use designation. Proposed plans are projected to create a de minimis impact to public infrastructure. Final concurrency determined shall be made at the time the property receives site plan approval and is developed. This was heard at the August 1st, 2023 Planning Commission. 5 members of the public spoke with concerns about compatibility, additional pedestrian and vehicular traffic, and parking requirements. Based upon staff's review and conclusions, we are recommending the City Commission advance this to second reading.
Thank you.
You had a comment?
Oh, yeah. You got a comment?
No, on the sheet, somebody signed up to comment.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. I
Sure
think you
did. Thank you. Tom Leary, this is a good time for you to come forward, give us your name and address. You got 5 minutes. Thank you, Commissioner.
No problem.
My name's Thomas John Leary. I live at 1201 Fifth Street Southeast. I live approximately 3 buildings, not approximately, I live 3 buildings down from the parcel we're talking about. We moved, my wife and I moved to this area, residential area, because that's just what it was, a residential area. We find Winter Haven to be one of the best places in Florida to live. We went around, we've checked areas, nothing against complexes and housing areas. This is a residential, single-family homes nestled together as a neighborhood. And that's what we like it as, a neighborhood. There are plenty of businesses around. I think the adjoining Avenue K is mixed use. Even being with that there, being south, the high school being east of us, and Walmart being south of us, it is still a quiet area. We get plenty of foot traffic, but it's a quiet residential area that we'd like to keep that way. This property has no access except Fifth Street to gain access to this area. When we were first here at the Planning Commission, they had no idea what this bottom floor was going to be. It was first mentioned in office, which at first you think fine. But then it said, oh, it could be a bakery, or it could be this, or it could be that. There was nothing that said what it will be. It could be a car parking lot. What could it be? Anything. Asked about parking, they could make parking there. If you look at the lot, there's not much parking there for much of anything. You can go along 6th Avenue Southeast, and you'll see numerous areas where there's houses, business located underneath them, and you'll see cars scattered across the yard and the lawn. We don't want our residential area to turn into this. We're all neighbors. We meet regularly for dinner. Not once do we come home, we're waving to one person to the north or the south. We're talking all together. I can't say it enough. It's a residential community like we used to have. Now, I'm 70 years old, and finding this spot was a gem. I don't want anything to ruin it. And one thing I can see ruining that is making an exception for this one building, and he can go ahead and change it, and it's gonna affect whatever happens in the future, to include the domino effect. What if the next door neighbor says, well, if he has this, I want it too? And all of a sudden, I got guys fixing cars next to us. How can you refuse a second person if you let this person do it? That's our most concern. It's just gonna deteriorate the whole neighborhood. We'd like to keep it the way it is. It's peaceful, it's comfortable, it's one of the gems in Winter Haven, one of the reasons we've lived here since 1989. And I wish serious consideration would be given to denying this. Very serious consideration. And I won't bother with all these pages of notes, because I can't read them anyway. But, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Tom. Tracy?
I have a question. Eric, what are some of the uses in a mixed use?
Office and limited retail, as well as residential. No auto repair, no standalone parking areas. It's office, residential, and limited retail.
What are the limited retails? What names of businesses?
Names of businesses? Well, no, it would be like small retail shops, boutique shops, not your highway commercial type uses, not McDonald's, not, CVS and things like that. It would be the smaller, what they call retail shops or boutique type things.
Sort of like the red geranium and that
Yes,
kind
ma'am.
of thing?
Well, Eric, he does bring a good point about incrementalism. If we approve this, how are we gonna not approve the neighbor? We're gonna start going down this whole row here, approving these for that. Is that a logical conclusion? We talked about this the other night, and about,
Sure. So if we flip to the zoning map, AJ,
Yeah.
if we have that. I think from a planning perspective, when we look at the zoning map, if you view the depth of the MX to the east and the west, minus the large complex that's directly behind these parcels, you can see it's about the same depth along Avenue K for the
think
next.
that's a logical line to be
So,
drawn right
yep,
there?
so that line that is following the cursor really is a logical line for the depth, the appropriate depth of an MX district from a planning perspective.
Okay.
Could we is it possible to add a street view slide for next meeting?
Oh, you got a photo right there.
Ask and you
Is
shall
that what you're
receive.
looking for?
It's this two-story house right here?
Somebody else wanted to speak.
I just see if commissioners got any more questions or comments? Okay. I see somebody else wants to speak. Please come forward, give us your name and address. You have 5 minutes.
Hi, good evening. For the record, Sarah Case, Next Level Planning and Permitting. My address is 3825 South Florida Avenue in Lakeland. I am the applicant for this project, this proposal, and with me tonight is Mr. David Sparling, who is the trustee of the Sparling Family Trust. I do appreciate the opportunity to speak to you tonight because I know it is just first reading. Usually you do not open it up for any kind of public comment, but I did want to give you all the opportunity to ask me some questions. We know that we'll be before you September 12th. I plan on having a presentation that delineates precisely the actual lines between the zoning, the land use, and all of that. We do not feel like this will be a detriment to the neighborhood. It's one parcel deeper than the Belltone hearing aid retail place on the corner of Avenue K and Fifth Street. We feel like a proper demarcation would be where that alleyway is, on the color that shows MX, in between the R2 and the MX. We have a very large medical complex to the west of us. It's almost 600 feet in depth for that particular zoning. It is going to be up to staff whether they decide, if someone else were to come, if we're addressing the domino effect, it would be up to staff to say, no, here's where we draw the line. And then you all have already voiced that same concern. So I am trusting staff that they're going to do that as well and protect the neighborhood. My client, his family purchased, it was built in '66, but they purchased the home in '79. They are very infused in this neighborhood. They do not want to see anything that would be a detriment. So with that, I would like your consideration to move this forward to your September 12th City Commission meeting. And I appreciate your time this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Okay, Commissioners, any other questions or comments on this particular item? Okay, we'll take this up on 9/12. 02348, request by John Wood and Associates. City Attorney, would you read by title only, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ordinance number O-23-48, an ordinance amending Chapter 21 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Winter Haven, Florida by rezoning 9 parcels from single-family residential-small lot R-2 zoning district to single-family residential-large lot R-1 zoning district, providing for the administrative correction of scrivener's errors, repealing all ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for severability, and providing an effective date. General location, the Wood Point Phase 3 subdivision, generally located at the north end of Lake Hill Drive, approximately 240 feet north of Wood Point Drive. The area covered by this request is 3.95 plus or minus acres. Thank you.
Thank you. City Attorney or City Manager?
Mayor and Commissioners, this is a request from John G. Wood and Associates to rezone 9 parcels from single-family residential small lot zoning district to single-family residential large lot zoning district in the Wood Point Phase 3 subdivision. Better reflect the platted lot sizes as well as the building setbacks of the previous phases of Wood Point is the basis for the request, which followed building setbacks originally approved by Polk County over 20 years ago. Phase 3 is currently platted. Staff's review of this concluded that the requested zoning is consistent with the adopted residential low-density future land use and that of the surrounding developed neighborhood. And Wood Point Phase 3 is currently platted. As noted, there will be no additional demands on supporting utility, roadway, or public school infrastructure. This was heard by the Planning Commission on August 1st, and there were no public comments offered. Staff recommends City Commission advance this to second reading.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions or comments on this before we move on? Okay, last one. 02351, this is adopting an updated method of calculating an appropriate equivalent residential ERU factor value. City Attorney, would you read by title only, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ordinance number O-23-51, an ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Winter Haven, Florida, relating to water and sewer utilities by adopting an updated method of calculating the appropriate equivalent residential unit for multi-family residential units and non-residential land uses for application in determining the amount of the city's water and sewer connection fees that are due, and revising the definition of multi-family residential set forth in Section 19-138, small d, 2 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Winter Haven, Florida, making findings and repealing certain provisions of ordinances and/or resolutions that may be in conflict herewith, but only to the extent of any such conflict, providing for severability, codification, and the administrative correction of scrivener's errors, and providing for an effective date. Thank you.
Thank you. City Manager?
Mayor and Commissioners, in determining expansion and capacity fees for water and sewer connections, we use what is known as a ERU, an equivalent residential unit, to do those calculations. And obviously, we also deal with multifamily units. So we had asked Ralph Tellis to conduct a study on behalf of the city regarding appropriate methodology for determining the ERU factor when charging city water and sewer connection fees for multifamily developments. Based on that study, staff is recommending that an updated ERU factor or value for multifamily and non-residential developments be adopted to take into account characteristics of flow and other factors specific to such developments. That is what is included within Ordinance 023-51. And just for clarification, there is a copy of the report for the memo from Raftellus within the ordinance. And what it does is that single-family detached and single-family attached units will remain at a ERU factor of 1. Multifamily units that have up to 4 units within a building will remain at 1 ERU. But for multifamily units that are 5, or multifamily development buildings that are 5 units or greater, they will be factored at 0.6 ERUs per unit. And that is what is detailed within that fact sheet. So we're recommending this advance to second reading.
Commissioners, questions or comments on that? Okay, we'll take this up on 912. All right, any new business to speak of?
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
We've talked about this before, but, and I don't know if there's anything that can be done, but our aerials are so out of date when we look at.
We use the property appraiser's website, when we're dealing with, to pull up properties, you want to have the actual designated property within that. Eric and I have talked about this many times, that I think we're still using a 2020 aerial from the Polk, PA. I mean, that's the basis of our GIS layer there. So until they fly those again, which we would expect to be sooner than later, that's why we always try and have a Google reference for you as well.
I agree with you.
It's like the one in Wood Point, it showed just a little circle there.
I'd
That
lo-
circle's gone. It's a long street. It's all plotted. It's all
I like
grounds
the ones
broke.
that have the names of the businesses on there, like you can say, okay, that's Popeyes, and that's, Grove Roots or whatever, then we can kind of figure out where we are.
Yeah,
Even though I was
the
raised
PA
here.
is where we pull that GIS information from. So as soon as they update theirs, we'll knock your socks off, I promise.
Cool. All right, liaison reports. Tracy, you want to go first?
Okay. I attended the surprise naming of a podcast booth at the Chamber for Hap Hazelwood, and he's always been there to help the Chamber in their endeavors, and also has been a big part of the fundraising for the Chamber. So well-deserved. I attended the Dale Smith Memorial Celebration of Life Services. As you know, I worked for Dale for about 10 years, 7 years directly, and about 3 years once he moved to City Hall, and I was back. So it was a very nice service, and had a lot of speakers, I guess, for him. Matter of fact, the whole downstairs of the Presbyterian was so people could talk about knowing Dale, and there was a lot of things that came out, a lot of them funny, and a lot of them, it was Dale. We all knew Dale. So, and then I attended the luau at Lake Howard Heights, and that was very nice luau. I left Vanessa there to hold down the fort. I left after about an hour and a half of it, and they really had someone that sang all of the Hawaiian songs and Blue Hawaii and Elvis's movie, and she was half Hawaiian. Her mother was Hawaiian, and her dad was in the military and met him there in Hawaii. So she had a lot of stories to go behind that. One of the things that they did for the residents there is they had let them pretend they were on a cruise ship, and they served them foods from each little port like they would go into. So they made it quite nice for them. So I hope I get someplace like that one. So, and then I attended the Polk Emerging Leaders, and surprisingly enough, that most of those this year were entrepreneurs. They had their own little business and everything. So we got a young group of business people coming in.
Okay. Commissioner Yates?
Yeah, so I also attended the Three Floors of Fun at the Chamber event, and that, a lot of history in that building. Is a great event, and every floor just looks awesome. So kudos to the Chamber and everyone involved in raising the funds and getting that building brought up to today's speed. So it's really a neat place, and if you get a chance, go by and visit for sure. Also attended Dale's service. The Ritz board meeting attended. Also attended the Rotary Bowl. It's like the 17th annual Rotary Bowl. Always a great event. Really one of the coolest fundraisers in the city of Winter Haven, in my opinion. Of course, I'm partial, being a Rotarian, but it was truly a success and a great time. Got initials here, but I don't remember what that was for. And then finally attended the TPO board meeting, where the big news there is we were granted an additional seat on the TPO board. So we'll be able to have an additional representative from the commission attend the TPO board meetings and cast votes and whatnot. So I'm not sure when that actually goes into effect. I didn't hear that date, but that's coming. Maybe Mayor Pro Tem Birdsong heard that part, but that's all I've got.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, attended Dale's service and presented the read the proclamation resolution from the city. Attended the Florida Regional Association of Regional Councils that was held in Clearwater. And as Commissioner Yates has said, we did receive one additional member, and so we go from 2 to 3. But there was such a discussion about the realignment of the TPO. In fact, the staff made a recommendation that was not approved by the TPO. A recommendation was made by a commissioner from Lakeland to revise it so that we would keep our 3. I think Haines City would give up their 1, or maybe they kept their 1. Lakeland would give up 1. And so that Devonport could have a commissioner. Now, the thing about the recommendations, they have to be submitted and approved. And so probably before the end of the calendar year, one of the next 2 or 3 meetings we have, it will be approved by Tallahassee. It's not locally approved by the county commissioners. It has to go to the state. So it was really sort of interesting that we were having this discussion because the TPO, we have 19 members, and we could go up to as many as 25. And so with the recommendation that's being presented, I think our numbers would be 23, it was? 22. So it was quite a discussion about that, and there are a lot of opinions. And what prompted this is that the census, basically the municipalities, there are 17 municipalities plus the county. And so they try to keep them apportionate with the number of representatives. And so basically that's what led to the revisions. And so that's what led to the overall debate and the discussions. But at the end of the day, there was a comment that was made that, basically there have not been any real contentious votes on the TPO board. And in fact, I've been there a long time. The only one I ever remember was the high-speed rail, that where the location was going to be, whether it was going to be out at the Poly or whether it was going to be in Lakeland. But other than that, we had to move the meeting. The meeting was moved from Bartow. They had a special meeting. It was at the Lakeland Civic Center. I'd never seen that before. But other than that, that's the only time that we really have gotten into any long debates over anything. Because at the end of the day, state of Florida spends the money. That's, at the end of the day, it's the state of Florida.
Mr. Mayor?
Yep.
I remember what the initials stood for. So it was BPTW, Best Places to Work in Polk County. And I attended that breakfast, and the city of Haines City was there. And believe it or not, Haines City got Best Places to Work. And I couldn't, for the life of me, think how in the world Winter Haven, the city of Winter Haven, is not a best place to work. Certainly it's better than Haines City.
Up to the people that were voting.
No hard, and I'm kind of tongue-in-cheeking that. I'm sure Haines City's an awesome place to work, but I know Winter Haven is a better place to work. So challenge to our HR team that we can be a better place to work as well next year.
Back to vote.
But congratulations to Haines City.
Yeah. Okay, I'll go quick. Had a TDC meeting, and Winter Haven did get $10 million approved by the TDC for the Chain Lakes Complex down there. So that's a nice 50% match is what that translated out to for phases, I think 1 or 2 maybe, I'm not sure. But I will tell you, if anybody's interested, I brought some notes from the TDC. We are now collecting $22 million a year in bed tax. It used to be $4 or $5 million. Now we're up to $22 million, if anybody wants to see any of these numbers, because we had a very long, exhaustive meeting that took all morning. And this is the final, I think I might have shared this with you already, the Arts, Culture, and Heritage Sponsorship Final, about who got what, how much money, which agencies got the money. If you want to look and see that, you'll see where it goes and how much it is. And again, when I started on that committee, we were donating maybe $300,000. Now we're doing $1.2 million just for arts things, so arts organizations. So we've come a long way. After that, I ran by the airport. We had an airport meeting, and it was just finishing when I got there. And I only bring this up to say, the airport is in our inboxes right now as we check our emails. And I've had an occasion to sit in, I guess, on 3 of these airport meetings now. And that airport committee really takes their job seriously, and they're working really hard to do the right thing by the city and by us as commissioners. And I have confidence in what those guys are doing and those people are doing. And I think in spite of some of the stuff we're hearing about now, I feel like we've got some really competent, smart people that are trying to do it right and make the right decisions. And I've seen it firsthand now. So we'll keep plowing through and having confidence in T. Michael and the rest of our crew on this airport, all these airport things. Had a chance to go and work the First Presbyterian Soup Kitchen. I know I try to get you guys to do that every year, and I still think we should do it. We did, the diversity team went and worked it this past Sunday. T. Michael was there, and he was the chief cook and bottle washer, and I was just one of the ones that kind of helped serve, and Christine was there. We had a whole crew there. And man, what a good time, and it's always very touching to go through that process. And I challenge the commission, we ought to take a Saturday. It's only, you get there at 2 o'clock, you're done by 4, to go out there and cook some food and hand it out. And
If you don't have anything to do this Saturday, we're doing
this
it
Saturday
again.
again,
so-
okay. There's a great need.
I'm in, but Mayor Pro Tem's got to do more than supervise going forward.
Yeah, he's a good supervisor. I did well.
He's done.
I'll work.
Made sure it was safe to eat.
I also went to the Chamber of Commerce celebration. They were able to finally open the building, show everybody all the improvements they've done, and they were appreciative of what the city's contribution was. Polk Vision had their annual meeting at Theater Winter Haven, and I'm on that board, and I went by there, and it was actually packed. I have never seen such a big annual meeting, and people came and plowed in, and Dan Chesika had some entertainment that was nice, and everybody was favorably impressed with Theater Winter Haven and all that was done on there. City University had a kickoff. This is their third or second class, I think, maybe third class. I was able to give greetings down at the Winter Haven Museum. Of course, Bob Gernert stole the show, and, but was able to kick off City University. And finally, what happened tonight, we got this, I'm looking at this stuff from Keystone, and I have some experience with Keystone, particularly Mr. Bagwell. And if y'all couldn't tell, I think they were a little, put out a little bit maybe, I don't know what's the right word to say, but I would like to maybe find out what happened here and see if in fact what they're saying is true, that they had this money to be placed, and there was these people, they even have names down here, people that were told they were gonna get a roof, Mr. Garland and Gonzalez and Yashi Stewart and all these people that were supposed to get new roofs and they didn't get them. So to me, I don't wanna totally cut ties with Keystone, because they're a bunch of good local people. And if we can somehow rekindle things with them, because I know they're a good organization, just like you said, Brian. I have some experience with them, and I think they feel like they got fired or whatever. I don't know what it was, but somehow they felt like they had compelled to come down here and lay all this information out, and I don't want to ignore it. I want to make sure we get to the bottom of it. And if we have $1.6 million, let's spend it. And if we could pull these guys back in, because we certainly don't want somebody in Polk County saying Winter Haven's has fired them, because that's not what they need. Even if we don't want to use them, let's just make sure that we end the relationship properly if we're going to end the relationship with Keystone. And so that's all. I just don't want to, I want to make sure we look at this and see, because there's some things here, a lot of names of peoples that I wish they had gotten their roofs that didn't, so.
Mr. Mayor, can I respond to that?
Yes, please do.
So this is the first I've seen this information, obviously you as well. But what I will do with this is, Mr. Labby, myself, and Diane Durr, who's in charge of our affordable housing program, will review all this and provide a report back to you on where we stand and what strategy might work best for us going forward with respect to Hands of Central Florida.
Okay. And I'm not saying if we want to end the relationship with them, let's do it, but let's thank them and hug them and do all that, that kind of stuff, so.
Well, we actually have, I mean, so we would have to go back.
We've hugged them and said goodbye and thank
No,
them.
I'm saying when we voted
Yeah.
the other night. Did we not, did we not hire the other company out of Fort Pierce?
We did. We piggybacked on an agreement that allowed us to hire Guardian. Guardian, through that piggyback agreement, I believe it was Martin County, they provide a variety of services. So they can provide down payment assistance, they can provide housing rehabilitation, they can do a number of different things under that agreement. Our agreement that we had with Hands of Central Florida was a piggyback on Polk County's agreement that only allowed us to do down payment assistance. That's why they couldn't get roofs for these people, because our piggyback agreement with Polk County only allowed us to do down payment assistance. And so,
And what they're saying in here is this true?
well, this is the first I've seen it. I need to review what's in here as well.
I understand that the agreement was it was limited.
Right.
But they requested, and then according to them, and I'd like to really know if this
Right.
is really accurate or if it's just their point of view. Because they said that we needed to do an RFP and we never did it.
Right. And I can say that I looked at this letter. I've never seen the letter that was in here.
But you were here at the time.
I was here,
So that's
yeah.
what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm just curious.
So we'll look at it, but I say all that to say that our agreement with Guardian is not exclusive. If we want to utilize somebody else in addition to Guardian to provide some services, we can.
Yeah, but we've allocated all the money,
No, we haven't.
except for the one that we're gonna have in-house.
It's a fee for service, so they get paid for the clients that they serve. So if we want to use somebody else to provide some services as well, we can.
All right.
have as many different companies that provide that service we can have on contract.
Okay. City Attorney, you got anything?
Mayor, good evening. No, nothing tonight, other than to wish everyone a happy and restful Labor Day weekend as we close out our summer holiday, I guess. It feels like still summer, but hope everyone stays safe in the storm and
Right.
I don't know anything else. Thank you. Huh?
Summer hasn't gone anywhere.
No, but Labor Day's coming up, and that's a good holiday, and hope everyone has a good one.
City Manager?
I was thinking, shouldn't you have your seersucker suit?
Oh, I gotta find out when summer solstice is. Maybe next week.
You'll be good on the 12th. You'll still be good on the 12th.
Yeah, I do have a couple things, Mayor, Commissioners. First of all, we do have an item that we placed on the agenda under emergency items not received in time for the agenda, and this is with respect to a resolution number 23-50, and I'll ask the city attorney if he, you have a copy, you can read the title.
Yes, sir. Resolution R-23-50, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Winter Haven, Florida, declaring a state of local emergency with respect to Tropical Storm Idalia, invoking emergency powers and authorizing municipal officers to take necessary measures, providing for conflict severability and an effective date. Thank you.
So, Mayor and Commissioners, the state of Florida issued a declaration, 23-171 on Saturday. That has since been updated with 23-172 as of today, which expanded the counties that are within the state's declaration of emergency. Polk County, County Manager Bill Beasley signed their county declaration 23-01 today, which will be retroactively authorized by the Board of County Commissioners at their next meeting. This is just a similar pathway for the city of Winter Haven. It is truly a belt, suspenders, and I guess whatever the next protection level would be there. It helps us with if we have to do purchases or enter into contracts in response to storms. So at this point, I would ask that the City Commission approve Resolution R-23-50.
Mr. Mayor,
Okay,
motion to approve resolution R-23-50.
thank you. We have a motion to approve R-2350. Any closed city commission meeting, a public hearing? Anybody from the public like to speak to this item? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing, reopen the city commission meeting. All those in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion passes.
Thank you, and just along those same lines, if you would so entertain me, I'd like to give you just a couple updates on where we are and what is happening with our storm. 7 o'clock update has come out since I did my notes, but it has not changed much. So as of now, our landfall looks to be around the Cedar Key area within the Big Bend portion of the state. Our local major threat is really Tuesday evening through most of the day Wednesday. The forecast that we received from our county call earlier today mentioned sustained winds of 40 miles per hour with higher gusts beginning Tuesday evening around 8 p.m. 4 to 6 inches of rain possible. And those areas that are potentially prone to flooding could see that, and there would be some isolated tornado threat. Looks like the weather period of really crummy weather is 12 to 18 hours. That doesn't mean it's 40-mile-an-hour gusts during all that time, but on and off rain. The school system has closed public schools for Wednesday and Thursday of this week so that they can operate shelters. Excuse me. The county has also opened up a number of shelters, including a special needs shelter in Bartow, and we are engaging in conference calls with the county each day this week. The county EOC will begin their 24 operations beginning tomorrow, and we may or may not have a city employee at the station there. We are still evaluating the need for that. Much like the county, we will have some push teams on hand beginning Tuesday evening in the event that we have, you get a lot of water comes down and some wind behind it. You can have trees that topple over. Those things tend to pull water and sewer lines out of the ground. They can also block roadways. So between utilities and public works, we'll have some push teams on standby. We don't anticipate any closure of our solid waste operations on Wednesday, but if the landfill does deem it necessary to close, that will suspend our operations and we will put notice out of that. We do have a sandbag station that is set up at present time for those that are in flood-prone areas or, you know, have experienced flooding with the amount of rainfall that we're going to experience. That is located at the Lake Maud Sports Complex, which is on 7th Street Northeast. You will actually enter that facility from 7th Street. It's a very well-organized and laid-out system there, and residents can get 10 sandbags. They do need to show an ID that has a Winter Haven address to it. The county also has a number of sandbag stations that are open. Beyond that, most of our work today and tomorrow has been on securing any loose debris that might be at our various operational sites, evaluating both our city public construction sites as well as what's happening on the private sector, make sure things are, you know, it's not a ton of wind like a hurricane coming through town, but 40 miles an hour is going to blow some sticks around. So if we can get some of that stuff battened down before it makes its way onto the roadways, we'll be doing a lot better. Plenty of fuel within our motor pool and our airport operations, and we have had a number of programs that have been canceled at our facilities just in line with really what the school system is doing and not wanting people to come out in the evening. So tomorrow evening was going to be the second class of City U Session 2, or Year 2. We have postponed that and adjusted their schedule accordingly. So that's where we stand storm-wise. We will provide updates to you tomorrow in an email format, but I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have now, if you have any. Yes, sir.
Is the strategic plan meeting still on for tomorrow?
It's been postponed as well.
Oh, okay. I didn't have that.
And I saw school tomorrow, but no school on Wednesday and Thursday.
Right, so public schools are open tomorrow. There will be no after-school extracurricular activities to include athletics at any of the facilities, and they will close for students on Wednesday and Thursday with the intent to reopen on Friday.
And Tico's still planning on using the field house as a stadium.
Tico is mobilizing as we speak to stage folks over in this neck of the woods, and really that becomes if there's any impacts with storm surge into the Tampa area, it gives them a good point to be safe and respond accordingly.
Okay.
The last thing I would say, and we are pushing all this information out through the website, we have a phone line, Katrina's manning the social media. There will be some additional information that goes out through the public safety app. So pay attention to the website, pay attention to your emails, and we'll be continuing to share that. In response to Commissioner Yates' comments on the City of Haines City and the best places to work, I did receive, within seconds of you saying that, from your HR director, challenge accepted. The HR team is looking to put in applications in the coming year. So,
Great to hear. And, sorry, real quick, if you can send me the details for Saturday, I'm not going anywhere, so I'd love to be there.
I think it's the T. Michael AJ and family approach on Saturday, so we'd love to have you.
Hey, you're talking about the soup kitchen? Why don't we plan to all do it down at Christmas time or something? We gotta.
We
put our-
did 2 years ago.
Yeah,
we
let's
did.
do it
All of
again.
us did.
T. Michael does it like every other week, so. We could do it twice if we want to.
Yeah, it's not by choice, sir.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just they need somebody to step in.
Suffering.
That concludes my report for the city.
We can always do one at the Mission, too.
Yeah.
Yep. And we had a group at the Mission, I think Thursday a week ago, so.
Just AJ, just start getting us signed up on everything.
Okay, well, we had one emergency matter, and we took care of that. That's the state of a local emergency. City Clerk, you got anything?
Nothing this evening.
Okay. Motion to adjourn? We're adjourned.
Thank you.